The Punisher episode 7 recap, ready, I met. Crosshairs, the 7th episode of The Punisher's first season, is aptly titled. Its 20 seconds use the targeting mechanisms of the show to be key to Wansaski visual signifiers first in a smoke grenade roder cat and mouse game between Frank Castle, attempting to get information from the corrupt call. Morty Bennett, and a security team led by his frenemy Vigil Russo. Then in the climactic scene where Finagi pulled the trigger on Agent Orange it only to discover the man's being protected by bulletproof glass. The tense, exciting sequences, in which the red light beams piercing the fog and the painstaking procedure of taking aim at a distance give us a memorable means by which to track Frank's progress. They work in yet another version of the classic Marvel/Netflix IO effect, in which the Punisher encounters alone entry in an enormous tunnel and tests to talk his way past him rather than engage in an always still slowfest with a couple dozen assailants. But its character and conversation is most interested in her, for several reasons. First and foremost, this is frequently the point to where Marvel/Netflix shows run out of both story and theme. Both the Fuji overrated Jessica Jones and the enjoyable but bloated Luke Cage made the mistake of dispatching their antagonists early, successfully imprisoning the telepathic rapist Killgrave in episode 9 of the former, killing of the charismatic gang Lord Cottonmouth in episode 7 of the latter, forcing them to generate preposterous plot twists, prison breaks, long lost brothers, etc. to run out the time for the rest of the season. Daredevil Season 2 did something similar by wrapping up its initial Punisher storyline by episode 4 before introducing secondary antagonist/love interest Elektra and eventually making the Nerd Ninja Master Nobu the season's big bad, but since Castle never fully went away and Elektra was an entertaining substitute in her own right, it weathered things well enough. Of the southfrontish corner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe IVCN, life's too short for Iron Fist and the Defenders, only the first season of Daredevil felt like it had a beginning, middle, and end that justified its length, rather than the other way around, an honestly event that could have been tightened up. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see how engaged I remain in the questions and storyline remaining at this point in the Punisher. If we expected Frank to successfully plug Agent Orange, a la Jessica locking up Killgrave or Cottonmouth getting beaten to death by his cousin Maria. But thanks to bulletproof glass, Frank blew it. And now I'm intrigued to see how he and Micro can overcome the obstacle of a target to us coming. I like the relationship between Castle and Lieberman in general, honestly. The show makes time for little details that would be ignored by a more utilitarian production, such as David making homemade sauce for a pasta dinner at as they plan their raid on the military compound, and those details really make the characters and their relationship reate. I found myself genuinely interested in the way they set out their hopes and fears about the future after the Punisher finally killed their mutual enemies. They sounded like a senior 5 but excited and scared of at least I had. not a vibe you'd expect, but it works. Less central characters are afforded similar nuance. Madani and Steinreich felt like partners as they said for the book suddenly realized must be in their office, the way they convert their so-to-watch discussion of the book into a can you believe it is said? Gripping session about sexual harassment to another agent's pass by is clever, funny, and also relevant. When it's not covering up a murder, coming close to suicide, or building a bomb, traumatized veteran Lewis are some more powerful moments with his loving and concerned father. The older man's attempt to use an available means to reach his son, from sharing prescription sleeping pills go to an his wife to attempting to use Muhammad Ali's rope adopt strategy against George Foreman in the room playing the jungle as a life lesson in how to react just to civilian life, is painfully real. Again, I think this material is strong enough to sustain its own series, that it's included in a show about a character who appears in Lego video games is nothing short of astonishing to me. The villains, though, have some compelling conversations with one another, though that's less of a surprise, though like some. Wilson Fisk, his assistant Wesley, Cottonmouth, Maria Dillard, the Punisher himself during Daredevil Season 2, better than others, Killgrave is a scenery showing caricature was a relevant to my personal experiences as an abuse victim as Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Villains have always been treated as integral to these shows, serving almost as co-protagonists. Ben Barnes Vigil Russo remains charming in that and some Wall Street way, and will contempt himself, and never tells her sorrow of contempt for his co-conspirators Orange and Bennett. In particular reages Orange's number, accusing him of getting off on torture sexually. Actor Paul Schultz reacts to the insult as Maguire reacts to Frank's failed assassination with a face of stone, like is so emotionally cauterized is incapable of taking offense or being surprised. Morty Bennett is given his moments in the sun, first growing to his at about how hard it is to be powerful, then groveling at her feet by licking up the wings speed. Power dynamics, baby, gotta love them. Actor Andrew Paul Hivestis Minor, no murdered character the effect of an aggrieved regional manager, making the point that empires like America run as much on officious functionaries as they do on cold-blooded killer like Russo, who kills both Bennett and the sex worker they diretto que Epson him, an Orange. The Punisher is up against the world architecture of American power. Art of it at in your crosshairs. Collins, @St. Collins, who writes about television for Rolling Stone, Vulture, The Observer, and any place that will have him, free. And his family live on Long Island.